Good afternoon and welcome to the Senate Committee on Labor and Technology. Today is Monday, February 6th at 3:00 p.m. We are in conference room 224. I'm Sharon Moriwaki, chair of the committee, and with me, I'm so glad to see Senator Gil Keith Agaran here with me, and we will have others joining us. Before proceeding with the hearing, I'd like to make a few housekeeping announcements. Hearing is being streamed live on YouTube. And let's see. And where are we? And you can find links to viewing options for all the Senate meetings on live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. In the unlikely event that we encounter major technical difficulties and must end the hearing abruptly, the committee will reconvene on Wednesday, February 8th at 3:00 p.m. in this conference room 224 and via video conference. If there are technical glitches for the Zoom testifiers, we may have to move on, but due to time constraints, but we will have your written testimony before the committee. I'll be reading a list of individuals who submitted written testimony for each measure, and we apologize if closed captioning doesn't accurately transcribe the names. If you're interested in reviewing the written testimony, you can go to the legislature's website and you'll find a link on the status page for the measure. The time slot for this hearing is 90 minutes, and we accommodate everyone who registered, so we ask you to limit your testimony to 2 minutes, and they will be posted on the legislature's website. So after all of that, we can move now into the first bill, which is Senate Bill 752 relating to telecommunication. It requires the Office of Enterprise Technology Services to establish a working group to identify state office buildings that can provide equitable telecommunication access to allow certain residents, including residents with disabilities, to participate remotely in legislative hearings. And it requires a report to the legislature, and it will dissolve in June 2024. First person up is the Comptroller, Keith Reagan.
Chair, we stand on our written testimony yesterday. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. And Doug Murdoch, Office of Enterprise Technology Services.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. We had originally testified in opposition to this bill because we believe already the telecommunications abilities exist in all the state office buildings. But having thought about this further, we've spoken with libraries, and they have a program in place already to support the purpose of this statute or working group. So we would support the bill. We'd recommend you remove the word office where it says state office buildings, just say state buildings.
Okay.
And then we want to ensure that libraries are involved because they have a solid program going already, really impressive. And I think probably the working group could work to promote and enhance what libraries is already doing in this area.
So they are in all the counties, especially the rural areas, the libraries.
I think there's 56 libraries in 7 islands, but the testimony of the librarian probably gives you the specifics.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Daintree Bartolbas, State Council on Developmental Disabilities. Thank you. We also have, let me just introduce Senator Ihara here and Vice Chair Lee just joining us. We have written testimony. Anyone else on Zoom or in person who would like to testify on this measure? Okay, we have written testimony from Cheryl Kakazu Park, Office of Information Practices with comments. Stacy Aldrich from the library in support. James Kilgore in support. Franz Weber in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? If not, could the Comptroller come forward, please? Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members.
You have comments in your testimony, so you are willing to chair the working group, and based on Mr. Murdoch's testimony, also to include the libraries in the working group.
Yes,
go
Chair.
forward.
That's correct.
And you made some other recommendations for being able to meet virtually as well as in person. So we will take those comments.
Thank you, Chair.
I do have one other comment from the Office of Information Practices, that you have a public meeting. If in fact we delete since it's a state operational group, that you would not have to go under in Chapter 92, but you would have a public hearing. Is that at least one public hearing to get public input?
Chair, I would agree that that's an excellent suggestion.
Okay. Well, thank you. Anyone else with questions?
So what
Senator
is the
Howard?
rationale for not, is it, this exempts this group from the Sunshine Law?
It's a working group, similar to other working groups that the state has pushed forward, like for procurement, even for ETS.
So why would it need the exemption?
In the original bill and language, it requires that we provide minutes, that we provide agendas, and typical, what you would typically find with commissions or boards that are authorized by the state.
But they all are in the Sunshine Law.
Yes, but this is a working group, so we're
trying to distinguish this working group from something that's, I'm sort of trying to understand why you'd be exempt, because it's by statute exempt.
Yeah, this is the language that was in the bill that was being proposed, and so we're just
to be subject to the Sunshine Law.
It would just require additional work and resources, right, to be able to comply with the Sunshine Law. We'd have to post, we'd have to have staff to do minutes, create agendas, to essentially staff it as a commission or a board would typically be staffed.
Right.
Yeah, I think, just in terms of the comments from OIP, they're saying that this is more of an operating working group. It's all state agencies looking for places where they could have remote.
Why do you need a statute?
I'm sorry?
The Sunshine Law are those statutorily entities statutorily created or by resolution. Okay. So it could be done by executive order, it could be done but to do a statutory and then you exempt it, I don't quite understand that. If it's an internal working group, then you don't need a statute.
Yeah, so Senator, we didn't propose this bill. We're just supporting the bill. So if you'd like us to do the working group, depending on how you'd like to set the policy, for that.
Without a statute?
Without passing a law?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In fact, I would be willing to do the working group, as I think that I would be willing to do that. Yes.
Well, okay, well, we'll discuss that then. So you would do it without having a statutory requirement?
Yeah, I just feel that it's important that we, identify locations where our people can go and participate in this process. It's part of the democratic process. And if we can, make it very clear where people can go, it's accessible, I think it would just be beneficial overall.
Because a similar bill didn't pass last time because there were concerns that, there was no staffing and resources to do it. But you're saying you could do it without us telling you to do it.
I feel that I can, yes. Yeah, and I think you heard the CIO's comments in his testimony that, already there's infrastructure, there's facilities that exist. It's just a matter of identifying them, working with those facility managers and making sure that they're available during the times that you folks are having committees, right, for hearings and stuff like that.
Okay, well, we will take that under advisement, and we will hope that you will have this list of places for our community to go to, and especially in rural places, to have this.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions? Anybody else with questions? Okay. Moving on then to SB 342, relating to paid sick leave, requires employers to provide a maximum amount of paid sick leave to employees for themselves or a family member who is ill or needs medical care, and supplemental paid sick leave to employees under certain public health emergency conditions. First, Director Butai, Department of Labor. Oh.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Bill Kunzman, Deputy Director, Labor and Industrial Relations. The DLIR opposes this measure as drafted, although it does appreciate the intent to provide sick leave in the law. Our opposition is in part because it gives the department additional significant responsibilities without staffing and resources. And also, as drafted, it does create some conflict with some of our other laws. So on this basis, we're recommending that a formal study is prudent before statutory changes are made.
Okay.
And we'll be available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Tita Yamaki, Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and we are opposed to this bill. Many businesses already have some type of sick leave policy, whether it's a lot of them are paid and in place. And we want to point out that Hawaii's employers are the only one in the entire nation that has to provide health care insurance for their employees. No other state mandates that, and mainland employees must pay out of pocket for medical care themselves. We also want to point out, in addition to sick leave compensation, the employer has to pay another individual to take over that person who called in sick at that time, just to fill in. Businesses right now have had a big hardship, especially when they raised the minimum wage last year. They were not anticipating it to be that soon, and a lot of them didn't budget for it. So if you go through any mall right now, especially right after Christmas time, there are a lot of stores closed, and part of that was they just couldn't afford minimum wage on top of the extra cost of shipping and the extra cost of doing business and the extra cost of having goods and services. So we ask that you please hold off and hold this measure.
Thank you. Okay. Will Caron, Hawaii Appleseed, in support on Zoom? No. Okay. In support. Sergio Alcabila, Hawaii Workers Center. Aloha.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair Lee, members of the committee. Again, my name is Sergio Alcabila. I am the Executive Director for the Hawaii Workers Center. We stand in strong support of this bill. As we all know, the components of the bill, really the benefits for employees and employers, and I won't really harp on that too much. When I first entered the workforce, I remember it was a source of pride, right? My immigrant work ethic, that I would come to work sick. Even if you've got the flu, right? There was something about coming to work, doing your work, and even if you were sick, you still came in. But I think times have changed. People have come to realize after this pandemic that nowadays, you can drop dead in what you're doing at work, and you'll be replaced within a week or two, right? And that goes for all of us, and whatever it is that we're doing, whether we're the CEO of a company or whether we're the warehouse worker. But things have definitely changed, where now it's about, putting your health first, taking care of yourself. So, at the end of the day, this is good for employers, it's good for employees. Just very briefly, part-time, I also work in a warehouse as a warehouse worker. And oftentimes, one day when I called in sick, I almost got fired, knowing that if I came in sick, I was going to get people next to me sick, right? But, the employer didn't care too much about that, but it was about getting the work done. But once again, we don't want to get our coworkers sick. We don't want to get other people in the workplace sick. It'll cost employers more in productivity, and doing work when you're sick is really not the best idea. So thank you again, Chair and Vice Chair, for letting me this opportunity to testify in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Robert Kirielmo, sorry. Robert Kirielmo, is that how you pronounce your name? Kirielmo.
Thanks, Chairman. My name is Robert Corielmo. I'm from the Federal State of Micronesia, Island of Bombay, and I'm the president of the COBA Association on this island, working under the Hawaii Workers Center. And I just came here to justify to the committee on. I'm working with a strip steak restaurant in Hawai'i International Marketplace. On January 16, I called in sick. I want to Waikiki Clinic. They gave me an appointment on January 17 to visit the doctor. When I went there on the 17th, they finally found out that Kaiser insurance, they cannot accept it. So they sent me back to Kaiser clinic. So when I visit Kaiser in the afternoon, they find out I have an high blood pressure, and they called me 911, sent me to Kaiser hospital. When the 911 arrived, they checked me around and they told me we cannot make it to Kaiser, it's too far. So they stopped by me at the Queens, and I stayed there about 4 hours or 5 hours, and they finished up everything and they sent me home, and they make a doctor note for 2 days rest. And when I returned it back to the work site, give them the note, and finally this paycheck come, my check stub, they didn't pay sick leave in this check stub. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present here to testify? Is it Unite Here Local 5? Are you testifying? You're raising your... Come on.
And Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. Oh, one minute. I think we have Michael Gulio first. He's on Zoom and he registered. So just, you can stay there and wait until he testifies. Okay, Michael.
Oh, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Michael Galoy Jr. on behalf of the Stonewall Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. We stand in strong support of this bill because it's a public health matter here. By making sure employees can stay home when they're sick, or help a family member with their ill, ensures, as we just saw in the pandemic, would ensure that we don't pass along flu to everybody else. They come home sick, they go to work sick. Wouldn't it be great if we got rid of that tip penalty and used all that employee work there at the Department of Labor to take care of the things that this bill would do? It sounds like a win-win for everybody. So it's just a public health. We need to take care of the public. And when it comes to, yes, this is an added cost. And so it would really be great if we heard the retail merchants show up to this building or Zoom in like I am when we're talking about doing Medicare for all or having a universal health care. So I kind of have very little to feel sorry for them about when they don't actually care about their workers enough to offer paid sick leave and also don't fight for universal health care. So on that note, we do encourage you to pass this bill out because it is a public health crisis. Mahalo.
Thank you. Okay, so proceed. State your name and
thank you, Chairwoman. My name is Neil Tupas, and I support Bill SB 342. I think I deserve sick days because I also get sick. It's something that I can't really control. It's something that just comes unexpected. I cannot just choose not to be sick. I'm not Superman. I worked before in a lot of restaurants in Waikiki, Kalihi, Kapolei, and we didn't get sick days. I think there was this kind of unspoken agreement, which I think is common in all the restaurants I worked at and in most places where people work, that you get paid if you are there and you don't get paid if you are not there. Where I used to work, if I didn't come in that day, even if I'm sick, and even if I had a doctor's note, it would still be the same. They would record it, even if I had a doctor's note, and if they see a pattern that I was out or I was sick many times, they could fire me. And I cannot just choose not to be sick. I'm kind of forced to go to work even when I'm sick because one, that missing that one day is really a big chunk of my pay at the end of the week, and two, I don't really want it on my record that I was out this day because I was sick. Also, it's dangerous to go to work sick. I work in the kitchen. I work with knives, and where I used to work at the taco place, I had to carry like hot boiling pots of beans at work, and if I go to work with a fever or if I'm feeling dizzy, it's really not safe, and I might hurt myself, and then I have to take a whole week off, and that would be really bad. I think we should get sick days because it would help a lot, and every worker should get it. It's good for workers, and it's also good for the restaurants and where they work at, because I don't want an accident, and I don't think where I work, the place where I work, or anyone where they work, they also don't want an accident happening on the job. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've been sick and you've been off, and they have not allowed you to take sick leave.
They don't give sick days. I mean, if
So
I'm
you don't get a day off to go to the doctor or stay home if you're sick.
if I'm sick,
If you have a note.
if I have a note, yeah, I can take off, but then I don't get paid for that. And even if I bring a doctor's note, they will still mark it, and I still don't get paid for that. And if I have like a pattern, like I'm off this many days, like it doesn't look good, and then they could fire people for that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify on this measure who's here? Oh, sorry, wait. Oh, sorry, Nicole Wu first. Oh, you want to come up? Please come up and state your name, please.
Thank you, Chairwoman, member of the committees. I think after the pandemic, we need to put in a lot of consideration on this bill. Like, I know that we closed down a lot of places, but to me, I believe that paying sick leave is better than closing down schools and places. I'm sorry, my name is Pumina Soswa. I was a student here attending Hawaii Pacific College in 1978. I came back here to support my kids, and I'm also supporting Hawaii Workers Center. While in Oahu, I provide adult care, and I'm on call. I experience the difficulties that these adults have during the pandemic. It's hard for us to get into the facilities to help them. So that is when I started to lose my time. And when I turned back to my kids, my single mom daughters really need my help. So right now I'm taking care of my grands, because when the mom is out there working, a lot of times the school would call, this child has cough and need to be picked up. So with these emergencies, I believe this single mom and a lot of parents do need to get up from work. So, like, from my own opinion as working with this group, time has changed. Policies need to be changed. Otherwise, the economy and the kids will have a huge transition that might be out of control in the future. So I am now devoting my time with these elderly people and my grandkids. And I volunteer with Hawaii Workers Center just to voice out, because they are the workforce. Without the workforce being taken good care of, I believe the economy and the future of the next generation will not be what we expected. Thank you for this time, allowing me to testify.
Thank you.
It's a great pleasure I hope we put into consideration this bill and try to unite, put everyone in a safe place. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next, Nicole. Thank you. Nicole Wu, Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I think I signed up for Zoom, but I decided to show up in person because this is a very important bill for Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks. We prioritize this because working parents especially have trouble. Not only do they have to care for themselves, but they have sick children often. And if they have to stay home with their child, they can also be penalized at work. There is some data out there, so we link to it in our testimony. While most white-collar workers like you and I do have paid sick days through our employer, either the state or private, less than half of low-wage workers have paid sick days on the national level. That data comes up regularly every year or every 6 months. In Hawaii, the latest thing I could find was a Bank of Hawaii study from right before the pandemic. It found that less than half of leisure and hospitality workers in Hawaii have paid sick days. And honestly, these are the workers who are face-to-face with ourselves, our tourists. We want them to be able to stay home if they have the flu or another contagious disease, as some of the prior testifiers said. We're the only nation without paid sick days, only wealthy nation. And to fill that gap, 14 states, the District of Columbia, and dozens of jurisdictions have put in paid sick days laws. The language in this bill is very similar to other laws in other states, so it's not like controversial language. It's been tested in other places. And there's also been a lot of studies of these other states. And so there are links in the testimony, but they have found reductions in the spread of illnesses. They found business growth has been higher in places with paid sick days than the neighboring jurisdictions that didn't have it. They found some cost savings for employers because, as some of the other testifiers were saying from their personal experience, these employers are finding that illnesses don't spread. So we support this bill very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Are there any other people who want to testify on this bill? Please identify yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Moriwaki, Vice Chair Lee, and Senators. My name is Victor Lim, and I represent the Hawaii Restaurant Association. And I did send a testimony, and I just want to share that, contrary to popular belief, the COVID-19 and high inflation and interest rates and all that stuff, many of our restaurants are not out of the woodworks. We are barely hanging in there. Regarding paid sick leave, many of the bigger, stronger entities already provide paid sick leave, including myself. However, there are many that are much smaller entities that do not have the ability to provide paid sick leave at this point in time. Like what Tina Yamaki said, that we just medical insurance alone, it's almost $500 per month per employee that we provide, that no other jurisdiction in this United States require their employees to provide. The other thing is I'll also put up some comments, especially the smaller entities, when you have allowed people to also accumulate the sick leave instead of use it up and things like that. If you have 6 people working, if one person is out for one whole month, they technically cannot run their operation easily, correctly, and that's why the accumulation factor is also critical. Please, with all those comments that we have provided, please consider holding this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else here or on Zoom? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Norwaki, Vice Chair Chris Lee, members of the committee, Jason Bradshaw, here representing the Chair of the Labor Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. We strongly support this bill. We've been supporting paid sick leave for a number of years. I think it's a very important measure for working families in Hawaii. We heard from a few testifiers that say they think a majority of workers in Hawaii have paid sick leave, but the studies have shown that roughly 180,000 workers in the state of Hawaii do not have access to paid sick leave. Many of them are in the service sector economy. They work in restaurants, they work at retail stores. They don't want to interact with the public, they don't want to engage with the public. They cook our food, they serve our food. I think it'd be important that they be able to stay at home and recover from their illness and help slow the spread of illness, especially now that we're just sort of recovering from a pandemic, kind of still in it. Important they be able to stay at home. Those workers also, if they don't have paid sick leave, many of them actually attend work sick. A day without pay for them is a day without groceries, possibly not being able to afford rent or their mortgage or bill or what is school supplies for their children. This is very important for many of those workers. So we feel it's a workers' rights issue as well as a public health and safety issue and strongly support this measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to go through all the written testimony. Tommy Johnson from Department of Public Safety, oppose. Department of Human Resources from the City and County with comments. Sholi Tokusato, Unite Here, Local 5 in support. Robert Kabako, Shoko in support. Pride at Work, Hawaii in support. Daniel Paul Ross with the Nurses Association in support. Victor came forward. Ann Frederick, Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action in support. Myung Oh, Hawaii Energy Marketers Association, comments. John Bickle, Americans for Democratic Action in support. Angelina Mercado, Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence in support. Tuyana Scanlon and Ane Transnetsky, IATSE 665 in support. Gary Hooser, Pona Hawaii Initiative in support. Mitsuhiga, Democratic Party of Hawaii Labor Caucus in support. Raymond Katania, Hawaii Workers Center, Kauai in support. Chris Caulfield, Imo Alliance, and with the Democratic Party Hawaii Education Caucus in support. Mitsuhiga again with HSDA in support. Peggy Mierza with Public Health Institute support. Stephanie Sakamoto, Hawaii Credit Union League with comments. Hawaii Food Manufacturers Association in opposition. Nanea Lo, all of these are individuals in support. Leslie Kabaya, Ryan Samonte, Juliana Davis, Noel Kent, Janice Turner, Bradford Bong, Norris Tomlinson, Teresa Landro, Robin Worley, Lorna Holmes, Susan Staten, Nikos Leverenz, William Higa, Christopher Boscoli, Marilyn Mick, Greg Crawford, Talek Tukuda, Nania No, Dominique Jerry, Kate Payne, Jonathan Sen, sorry if I'm mispronouncing names, Judith Will Hope, Elizabeth Hansen, Roger Hansen, John Kawamoto, Tony Radmilovich, Keahi Kuikahi, Valerie Kim, June Shin, Alan Lloyd, Bob Kinsey, Raymar Bylard, second, Kathy Valdovino, Stephanie Blakemore, Michael Fowler, Jane Arnold, Will Caron is already up there, Maria Grams, Maki Marino, Greg Pupione, Sherry Fisher, Carole Bidgood, Ryan Gilhooly, Christy McPherson, Richard Spellman, Hawaiian Barsodi, Reverend Samuel Domingo, Millicent Cox, Mary Oaks, Carolee Kamikona, Hunter Haviland, Lisa Mitchell, Megan Dietz, Leslie Lopez, and Marion McHenry. I'd like to call the Department of Labor, Bill, some questions. You've heard from some of the testifiers that they aren't getting sick leave, and they're going to work sick and not being, and they're losing pay for the time they're sick. And yet we heard from the other side that we require health insurance and so employers should be paying for sick leave. Can you address that problem?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I think part of our read on this bill is that we really don't know how it would operate, because the director and other people can bring complaints, but we don't really know how many complaints we would get and what that administrative process would be or not beforehand, because it also says that There doesn't need to be an administrative process beforehand. So that's why we're suggesting that it might be good, like, because, and with some of the challenges with our other laws, because when the legislature acted before to enact TDI, prepaid, even comprehensive workers' comp reform back in the 60s, there was an LRB study that actually had an actuarial component and then also suggested proposed language to deal with some of these problems. So I don't know how to address that question.
Have you received any complaints about this? I mean, we're hearing from some of these employees. How can you get that problem with, especially low-wage earners and small businesses that, I mean, you've got to balance that, but have you received anything that you can start looking at how we might address that problem with the lower income and small business to be able to cover that? Because apparently collective bargaining and addresses it for the larger employers. But, you know, it's that gap.
Yeah.
Have you looked at it, or has the department looked at it?
We haven't really looked at it formally. I mean, it's something we can go back and query, but because there's no basis for a complaint now, we would get a complaint that was related to it, like people weren't paid, and then they said they went out and they tried to take, or they didn't have sick leaves, and then they didn't get paid and stuff. But we can go back and try to ask. Note 2 in the measure, the definition of employer excludes employers with a gross revenue of $500,000 or less and not involved in interstate commerce. So some of the mom and pop shops would be covered under this measure, similar to like our wage and hour law. So I don't know, you know, you have to take that into account too, but we definitely hear the need. And then, you know, the pandemic has brought this to the forefront in everybody's mind that, you know, it's probably a good idea to seriously look at putting sick leave into our law, but for us, the devil's kind of in the details about how to do that, because we have these other long-standing laws already in place, TDI.
So you know, you mentioned it in your testimony. So there's the Federal Labor Standards Act, there's workers' comp, there's TDI, and there's prepaid health care. So all of those have different definitions, different coverages. So has your department looked at all of those and see where they conflict, see where we can actually get some resolution on who's covered or not? And we're seeing the group that's not being covered, and what can you do about that, and whether the law then can be changed to at least address that gap?
You know, we haven't looked at that specifically in light of this, but I mean, I think that's why we're saying we would like to do that, and we would like help to do that, because it's challenging to do it on our own. We operate these laws, but how to put it all together and create something, that's where we would like the help from LRB and, you know, someone like a Reisenfeld to come in and give us suggestions for language and the considerations to try to address the issue.
So you can't do it within your department, you need help.
We need help, yes, yes.
Okay. Members, question? Okay.
I'm
Senator Itaro.
I guess, are you aware of any larger kind of organization or corporation that does not give sick leave? I mean, is there, like, I'm trying to think of, you know, if we're, as a community, we're wanting to raise our standards and how we treat workers, and we want to do it incrementally, if we don't do it all at once. And I would think that you would start with those who have the economic health to be able to do it. So if you are at a certain economic health, then you should be required to. I mean, as a baseline, you know, and then there's, I don't know how you deal with the mom and pops, and you know, why would you treat employees if they get sick? They're paid, their medical insurance is paid, but they don't have the time paid. So I'm thinking, and I can kind of see, well, if you're hurting to begin with, then what's more hurt? But if you're basically a sustainable entity, corporate entity, then I could see requiring it for them, basically that's the standard of how we want to operate in Hawaii. I know that's my take on it, and I don't know if you have any sense about what that, because you mentioned 500,000.
Yes.
Federal law.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of, at what level of economic, is that revenues, gross?
That's gross revenues.
Gross revenues, so you.
Gross revenue.
So you take out the pay, the salaries and all of, is expenses, is that gross revenue minus expenses? It's just.
I'm not sure. I'm asking maybe if wage standards can come up because they are more familiar with that because it's based on the Fair Labor Standards Act.
You know where I'm going with this? I'm trying to get a sense of I could be concerned, and I am concerned about the small business that you tipped them over and they go out of business. So I don't know how to deal with that yet. But I'm thinking for those who are healthy enough economic entities that if they can come up with a way to.
Who's required to pay sick leave, or like your TDI or under some of the other laws?
So
and do you monitor that from the department?
So currently, for sick leave, our law states that if the employer provides it, they have to put it in writing, and we would enforce that policy. So
but there's no requirement. What Senator Hara is asking, is there a requirement that all employers say making X dollars must provide?
So there's no requirement for anyone.
No sick leave. No
Right.
sick leave.
Unless you give it.
Right.
So okay.
But there are TDI laws and prepaid healthcare laws. Does that affect all employers, or is it just some employers?
So for prepaid and TDI, prepaid applies and TDI applies to most employers. And
most being, is there a level of revenues, or what is most?
I think it's by the number of hours worked is how over a period of time is how you qualify for both TDI and prepaid. So prepaid, if you work 20 hours a week for 4 weeks in a row, then your employer has to provide it. And TDI is a little bit stranger, lower formula, but it's like, I forget what it is offhand, we can get back to you on that. But so then the employer is required to supply it. But going back to what you were saying about, trying to take care of the smaller employers too, for instance, when the Prepaid Healthcare Act was enacted, there was also a premium supplementation fund that was created to help the small employers pay for the healthcare premiums for their employees, and it's for 8 employees or less, and that was passed at the time that the Prepaid Healthcare Act was passed. Unfortunately, now fortunately the feds have come in through the ACA and given us some grants to help us do the premium supplementation, but the state fund is basically out of money and has been for years, and we've come to the legislature multiple times and not gotten any money for it. So, yeah.
So, are you collecting any data as to who your employers that actually pay sick leave or not pay sick leave, or it's just by complaints?
It's just by complaints driven.
So
we don't collect that information.
So if we said to do a study, you are able to get a survey of all the employers, especially the smaller businesses. You have some way of getting that data so that we can really look at this, because it is a big problem. If we're saying 180,000 people aren't being covered, that you might be able to do that study.
Well, we could help facilitate it. I don't know if we'd volunteer to do the study. That's why we're saying maybe.
It is Labor Department.
Well, that's why I'm saying we kind of need help, like LRB. Like they've done, when the legislature has made significant changes in the past to workers' comp, or they created TDI or prepaid, there was an LRB study, and then they procured, at that time, a guy named Stefan Reisenfeld to come in and do a comprehensive study, and then we assist, of course, with what we can.
So if we did put an appropriation in the bill for you to do a study, and you could address this problem, then the Labor Department is willing to do and facilitate the study, because it is a big problem, seems to me.
Yeah, we would be able to assist for sure. I think what we're saying is we prefer if LRB could do it, but we could also do it if that was the legislature's
I think it should be under the
pleasure.
Labor Department, basically, because it is a labor problem. So if we do have an appropriation, you could move forward with at least your department being overseeing this problem and making sure that we can address the problems you heard here in terms of employees being covered for sick leave and employers, the small business, if they need a premium supplement, that would be one of the recommendations.
Sure.
I have a question for Nicole. Nicole or Jason?
Nicole.
Yeah, the two of you. Just remind me, I know that, paid leave issues have been coming to the legislature for about a decade now, and I know that at some point we asked for certain kinds of studies to be done. What kinds of studies were done previously?
So those paid leave studies were done for family leave. And I believe you had the LRB do the study. So what we're asking here is for sick leave. This is for short-term illnesses that TDI doesn't cover. TDI has a 7-day waiting period. So for what we're asking for, you wake up with a fever, you have the flu, you test positive for COVID. We're saying that you probably should stay at home, recover, rest, make sure you don't spread the illness to other. Yeah.
The deputy director just said that they would find it very difficult to fit this in within the current TDI workers' comp regime that we have, but you make it sound like it's really easy.
I mean, I think it is the employer would basically be required to provide paid sick days and paid for by the employer. So they would just pay you for your day's work if you were sick. It's not something that I think the would have to get involved in other than just enforcing it.
Other states that have paid sick days also have workers' comp and TDI, and it is another rule to enforce for DLIR, and we would certainly, I won't speak for Jason, but we recognize DLIR would need extra staff in order to.
The way we do TDI is a little different than some of the other states. We don't have a statewide.
Ours is a privatized system.
Type of program. I mean,
no,
we have privatized
yes.
portion of it, right?
Yes.
But the enforcement mechanisms, I think, is what DLIR was talking about, making sure that employers are doing it properly.
And just to keep in mind, there's 11 states that already have implemented paid sick leave, as well as a number of different cities as well too. So Hawaii is not clearly going to be the first if we were to move in this direction.
And this bill actually has private right of action, regardless of whether or not DLIR is moving forward as administrative enforcement, right?
This is not setting up a state.
That's not confusing in this language, right? It seems pretty clear that DLIR can work on their enforcement, but someone, if they're dissatisfied with a time or whatever, they can go ahead and file private right of action.
That's right.
We're not setting up a state program. This is workers earn their sick time, and the employers allow them to.
So what would a study do at this point?
I'm not sure. I mean, just like Nicole said, it seems pretty straightforward. You work X amount of hours, you accrue those up to a maximum of 7 days of paid sick leave, or whatever it is that you desire to be in the bill. So you work 30 hours, you accrue 1 hour of sick leave up to the maximum amount in the bill. That seems pretty straightforward.
So you've reviewed this bill because one of the things that the Labor Department says, the definition in the bill is that FLSA, the Federal Labor Standards Act, and it covers employers that have 500,000 with 500,000 or more revenue. So that really doesn't cover the group that we're talking about, which is the small employer and those with the low wage earner. So this bill seems to be not covering what we're talking about here. So I don't know if you had a chance to review the bill.
I believe the bill would cover all workers in the state of Hawaii. This sick leave bill.
Well, not the way that you define employer in the bill. So I think the Labor Department has raised that concern. Bill,
this is an employee benefit type of
yes.
bill, right? It's correct. It's like some of our other programs which are aimed at the employees, and it's based on the amount of time that they work, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And I think there's a cap here.
Yeah, up to seven. And you have to accrue it, so you don't start off with 7 days or 5 days. Yeah, and there's also a probation. There's also a probation period as well. You have to wait 90 days before you can even use your first day of accrued sick leave. So that also prevents maybe some abuses of people who just initially get hired right away. They're not going to be able to take sick leave right away. So there is that period as well in the bill.
Yeah, I have to admit, I didn't look up that section of the Fair Labor Standards Act. If that's a problematic definition, then
Maybe we could change the definition of employer, but ideally with the intent of this bill is to apply to all workers in the state of Hawaii, because as I had mentioned, at least it's estimated over 180,000 workers do not have it. And that to me is a medical health emergency, public health emergency.
Have you run into, in other states, any effort to have, particularly for the small businesses, mom and pops, soft transitions, like kind of a subsidy or any kind of, I don't know how you do insurance for, I don't know if you can get insurance for, I guess you could, insurance for someone who, you know, sick leave, like TDI or something like that, but I don't know how you do it. But have you run into that in other states? I'm thinking that even for minimum wage, I don't think we really proactively help.
See how you assist the smaller businesses.
Yeah, so some way to assist them.
So a subsidy provided by the state?
Or some kind of program.
Bill, you want to come back up because you talked about having that
One
program
extra chair.
previous.
Yeah.
You can stay. You can all stay.
Let's throw into that as well while you guys are pulling the chair up. With a delayed effective date, per some of the comments about businesses still recovering and that sort of thing, provide some sort of runway. Would that be helpful when I'm trying to answer this question? How long will it delay? Hold on. I'll go to you guys, but certainly not July 1.
Maybe January 1st.
So, which year?
Which year? Bill?
I think our support of it would be predicated on having the study and having the information and trying to solve some of the conflicts with TDI and workers' comp. So, I mean, that's what kind of we're saying. We don't have the answer. We need help to derive the answer.
Anything else? Any other questions? Senators?
To Senator Ihara's question, I haven't seen any. I actually, in my prior life, looked at different states. I don't remember any sort of grant program. Jason's not going to want me to say this, but in other states, they do have tiers for smaller businesses. They don't have to provide as much sick leave for the employees, which I feel badly for employees of small businesses because they still get sick, but that is the kind of compromise some states have done. And in terms of implementation, we could start with fewer days the first year and grow the number of days. There's definitely some flexibility here.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, for example, we do fund the study. Can you define exactly what you want the study to do?
We can come up with language for that, yeah.
So
I don't have it off the top of my head.
So you can go dust off what you had before and see what the appropriation could be to help you really do a good study.
Well, I think Professor Rosenfeld is long dead.
What was that? Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you.
Crisis, and I think it'd be good if we could just keep the conversation going for paid sick leave. It's important for the workers that don't have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Oops. So moving on to Senate Bill 812. Is that right? Relating to immigrant services, establishes and appropriates monies for immigrant services and access unit within the Office of Community Services. Giovanni Dominga de la Cruz with the Hawaii Office of Community Services.
Good afternoon, Chair Moriwaki, Vice Chair Lee, Giovanni de la Cruz, Executive Director of the Office of Community Services. We stand in our written testimony in strong support of the measure And also like to highlight that we offer an amendment to the bill, which is to include the function of the unit that it administers or oversees and monitors the Immigrant Resource Center programs that this legislature graciously awarded and funded last year through Act 256.
So what is that? Is that under you now, or it's?
Yes,
it's
yes, Senator.
else?
It's under the office now. So it will, the way we see the unit function is to consolidate all the immigrant related programs that we have, including our federally funded refugee program, to be under this unit.
Oh, I see. But you have that in your office already, those services?
The immigrant, yes, Senator. We have just finished the RFP process and currently on contract period
And
with the
statewide.
selected. Yes, it's statewide services. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Afrak Rungruen. I know I made it. Could you say your name, please? Thank you. Amy Agbayani, Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights.
Good afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair. I'm here representing Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights in strong support. We are requesting 4 amendments, which is listed in my testimony. 2 of them are to change the word shall to may, which would provide a lot more flexibility and be more comprehensive. And the other one, the second amendment, is the same as Office of Community Service to oversee and monitor the Immigrant Resource Center. And the other one would be to just say offer services including but not limited to. So they're very, I think, friendly and positive and comprehensive, and increases the flexibility and authority of the office. Just wanted to point out that this bill is actually built on a number of legislative actions that we appreciate that the legislature has taken. One was in 2021, we had a House Concurrent Resolution 169 that called for a study and a working group, and I was co-chair with the Department of Labor director and many stakeholders. And one of the recommendations is to really increase the visibility and authority of and also to make sure that the Office of Community Service, which was created, by the way, in 1985, I'm not sure when you were at the Department of Labor, but I was here in 1908 and helped create that. And that's when they combined 4 poverty programs, one of which was the State Immigrant Service Center. But unfortunately, throughout the years, the Office of Community Services has had to has done very well addressing poverty issues, but has had very little resources for immigrants and refugees. But many states, according to the bill, have these offices. And even in Hawaii, Hawaii County has one, I think Maui has one, Honolulu doesn't have one. But we are, farm-born people are 18% of our state, and the bill does identify the areas that they are actually heavily involved in with respect to our economy. So we feel that this bill will help Office of Community Services meet its mandate to immigrants and refugees, which is part of the legislation creating it. So we respectfully ask you to approve SB 812 with the 4 amendments.
Thank you. Okay, Bettina Mock with the Legal Clinic.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Bettina Mock, Executive Director of a small nonprofit called the Legal Clinic. We provide free immigration legal services for residents of Hawaii, and we're only 4 years old. In that time, we've really seen the devastating effects of very little access to local government and state government from the immigrant and migrant community, in part due to language issues, but also just navigating and not having someone there on their behalf. And so we stand in full support of SB 812 with some amendments that are listed in our written testimony. I just want to, if I have time, give a brief example of how we intervened during the pandemic because no one was speaking up. We had learned that residents with expired green cards were being rejected for benefits that they had earned, state benefits in a State Department. And so we thankfully had some folks that were able to connect us to the right people in the state to advocate for these benefits to be allocated. Expired green cards do not mean you're no longer a legal permanent resident. And because our immigration attorneys on staff were able to explain that to state staff, thousands of people were able to continue getting life-saving benefits. There were big issues with, as you all know, unemployment benefit access, and that's something we also went to bat on. And this was all through a coalition of small nonprofits that are representing the immigrant and migrant communities coming together in a vacuum because there was no coordinating body. And that's a lot to put on the small providers like the Legal Clinic. So we really can see the benefit at a state level in the Office of Community Services for coordinated efforts like this. So thank you for your time, and
thank you.
Written testimony is what we stand on.
I have Lisa Ryan Gill, Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Committee. I hope you can hear me all right. Liza Ryan Gill with Hawaii Coalition for Immigrant Rights. We represent more than 25 immigrant serving and immigrant-led organizations across the state of Hawaii. And first and foremost, we've submitted our testimony and we'd like to support the amendments that Dr. Agbayani put forward. And just on a couple of points to ground this in the context nationally. Very recently, President Biden reestablished the Task Force on New Americans, which emphasizes the importance of English as a gateway, as well as naturalization. We know from a study with Migration Policy Institute that when folks naturalize, which about 50% of our foreign-born population, so about 50,000 folks in the, or I guess less than half, but about 50,000 folks in Hawaii are eligible to naturalize. About 30% or about 30,000 of those are Filipino. When you do naturalize, that often results in a 50 to 70% increase in income. So if we want to address affordability, especially amongst our ALICE and lowest income populations, helping people naturalize is one way in which we can do that. Hawaii ranks in the top 5 states in the country for percentage of foreign-born people for our population, and yet we do not have a state agency that focuses on this like other states that have high populations. There are also 28 municipal offices of similar structure across the country. So this is something that's being done. There are really good models that are out there that we can look to. And it is in Hawaii's best interest to invest in the folks that we have here, making sure that they have access to legal services and benefits, they have a pathway to naturalization, and they are able to learn English in some place that is easy and convenient for them. So we appreciate your time. Mahalo.
Mahalo. We have written from anyone else here or on Zoom to testify. We have written from Kathy Betts, Director of DHS, Department of Human Services, with comments. Edmund Axon with the Filipino Community Center in support. Bill Carone, individual in support. Christy McPherson, individual in support. And Wilfredo Tungo, individual in support. Anyone else? Oh, yes, come forward. Sorry, we didn't get you.
I'm sorry. Senator, thank you again, Senator and Vice Chair, for just letting me testify on this bill. And the Hawaii Workers Center stands in strong support of this bill. As the executive director for the legal clinic mentioned earlier, during the pandemic, we asked so much of our nonprofits to do more with a lot less. And, really they did a great job of coming together and providing services for those in need. But in reality, what we really needed was to have that direct connection to state government or to city government. There was so much confusion during the pandemic. There was so much stuff going on, and a lot of our nonprofits were being tasked with trying to figure everything out. It would have been a big help coming from the nonprofit sector if there was that agency or a specific unit in the Office of Community Services that we could have gone to directly to get the information that we needed. I look all around this room, and there's so many of us here that a lot of our family came from other countries, that we may be first generation to third generation. Now, I believe we owe it to those that came before us to this country to be able to provide this type of service, to be able to provide this, at least this statement that we value our immigrant community. So thank you again, Senator, for allowing us to testify, and we stand in strong support of this bill.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Giovanni, can you come up, please? Just in terms of the service center, do you coordinate with other nonprofits, or this unit will be, how will it operate? Because you're saying you don't do direct services.
That is
you
correct.
will be developing the direct services or contracting out
Well,
to others?
so the way we operate Senator as OCS now is, again, as mentioned on our written testimony, we do not provide direct service. So what it is we contract with nonprofit through request for proposal, but prior to that we do RFI and contract and monitor the programs. So it will be based on needs assessment that we see as we need to conduct needs assessment within the immigrant community and what are the pressing needs, so that we can develop RFP to get service provider to provide the service.
This proposal is asking for $825,000, 2 FTEs, and also, well, actually five FTEs. So are they providing the service, or how are you seeing this operating in your office?
So basically, as for the record, we are supporting, we did not write the bill, but if the FTEs are granted, we will be the one who will be administering those programs, but not direct service.
So how do you see it operating? Because the bill itself asks for seven FTEs. And,
but actually, the bill asked for a total of 5. Two on the first year.
Two FTEs for 300,000 and 5 FTEs in 2024 for 525,000.
So total of
so what
total
how do you
5.
see they operating in your office?
So depending on what the needs on, depending on the needs assessment on those what programs are needed. So there will be merely program managers or program specialist managers.
So right now you have an idea of how they would be used or what they would be used. There's a whole bunch of services here that you
yes. So basically,
services.
So basically, the way we envision it now, centers for those programs listed and possible additional programs that will be administered. Each of those positions will be assigned to monitor those programs.
And the legal clinic would like to add migrants of the Compact of Free Association and also refugees and in the services and resources that you provide. So you are okay with that?
Yes, we actually right now have a federally funded, although it's small, Senator, under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Office of Refugee and Resettlement Branch. Because Hawaii belongs to the so-called group of states that receive
less than 100 refugee allocation per year, we only have a floor budget of $50,000 every year from the federal government to provide refugee social services, and roughly 20,000 for refugee cash assistance for the first 8 months on the granting of status. Now it's been moved from 8 months to 12 months. And so, yes, we don't have problem with that because we are serving that population. Because of the Ukrainian crisis, Senator, we have seen a dramatic increase in the last federal fiscal year 2022, more so now that we are in federal fiscal year 2023. As I've mentioned earlier, we receive an annual floor budget of 50,000 because of the increase on Ukrainians processing and helping Ukrainians refugees. Hawaii received an additional roughly $130,000 in addition to the annual 50,000 to provide services to them. The fiscal year 2023 is still currently being serviced, and we haven't received our report is on a trimester basis. But based on last year, fiscal year 2022, we have served 30 individuals, of which 25 are Ukrainians. So the number is continually growing. And I can tell you that for the refugee cash assistance, though it's small, for the past 3 or 5 years, it's hardly being utilized. But now we're only in the first quarter of the fiscal year, which is October to December. We're processing that now, and we've seen a very dramatic increase.
So do they come to you? How do they know about your program, or do you do outreach?
Yes, we do outreach, and we do. It's being referred to us, Senator. We work closely with Pacific Gateway Center. They receive also federal funds on their own, and we do cross referrals so that we can serve them. It is our hope that the refugees, when they do come to Hawaii, they come in for our services. But if they don't, then it'd be hard for us to track them because it's not mandatory for them. So if their port of entry is on another state and they do decide to come and experience a better Hawaii weather, then we hope that they do come in for our service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Anyone questions? Thank you. Okay. We are moving on to SB 1490 relating to state employees. This requires the state to defend professionally licensed or certified state employees from civil actions when the employee was acting within the scope of their employment and was not grossly negligent or wanton. Requires that if the state refuses to defend a state or county employee from civil actions on certain grounds, the state file a motion to be heard with the court. And all materials, okay, in the court. So, do we have Evan Oye? Okay, and on Zoom, Amanda Weston from the Attorney General's office. Please come forward.
Good afternoon. Deputy Attorney General Amanda Weston. We just had a couple of points we wanted to make. First of all, in litigation, it's critically important that we have a cooperative client. So in the event that an employee is not cooperative, it's going to end up in an adverse verdict for the state. So we asked for clarification in the bill that they be required to be cooperative if we're going to represent them. Then secondly, if we are forced to file a motion per the bill, it will contain sensitive information that would be damaging to that employee's case. So we would ask that it be filed under seal. And that's it. So I'm available for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kath, so we have anyone else here on Zoom or in person? Okay, we have written. Yes. Okay, great. So then the other written comments are from Kathy Betts, Director of DHS, Department of Human Services. Anyone else? Okay, so Amanda, could you come back up? Thank you. You've seen the other testimony that came in that, and especially with HGA, who might be willing to provide some more information, that employees who are in the scope of their work should be, and sometimes it costs a lot if they aren't defended represented by Attorney General's office. And you say they need to be cooperative. And that seems like a very vague and broad discretionary authority in the Department of Attorney General. So can you clarify what cooperative means?
Sure. So I've personally experienced this in a case where we started off representing somebody, and at first they were cooperative. And when I say cooperative, I mean when we're going through discovery, they provide discovery responses. They're going to appear for their deposition. They're going to respond if we call or email or contact them. They're going to provide us with up-to-date information, because we could be faced with a situation, we are faced with situations where an employee leaves the state and moves elsewhere. They might even have been fired, so their feelings with the state might not be as good as they were when the case was first filed. So we need their cooperation to help us with the case. And appear at trial for testimony, appear for depositions, respond to discovery.
So, Senator Young.
Why would they not be cooperative? They're being sued, right? And they're getting a free attorney.
That is true. It's a bit of a mystery. I've had the situation.
Okay, so right now are you saying that a city employee who is professionally certified and is applying their professional skills to a situation, and they're personally sued, that the state does not represent them?
No, we do.
You do?
We do represent them, but we're saying that because the bill says that we
requires
always...
the state to.
Yes.
So right now it's discretionary? Is that what it is?
No, we changed the law a few years ago to clarify that we would be defending.
Okay, so I misunderstood then.
It's a follow-up to a bill.
Okay, all right.
So we do represent them, but if it comes to a point where we have lost them and they're not cooperating at all, we should be allowed to withdraw representation and not be forced to go to trial and get an adverse verdict because they're not going to appear for trial and help the state.
So wouldn't you do that anyway if you were representing them and they weren't showing up? I mean, why would we need to say that they need to be cooperative in order for you to defend them? It seems like if you put that in front of the case, then there's a lot more discretion in what is cooperative versus the person is not cooperating and they're out of state or they're not around to help you with the case. Then you would have a recourse to withdraw. Why would we need it in the law itself?
Well, in the way the bill is written now, it seems to be more of a blanket statement that we're required to defend them, so we just wanted that clarification that they should be cooperative if we are required to defend them.
Okay. So the other is the under seal, which seems difficult to grasp if in fact you're now saying we're not going to defend you, and then you then say we're not going to give you all the documents, so then they're starting from scratch when they go to a private attorney.
Our concern is more if we file the motion and then we lose the motion in court, the court decides that, well, no, we have to go forward and represent them, and meanwhile all these documents are out there with
But if you're still going to defend them, then you have the documents and you can work with it.
Well, they would be able to get the documents at some point after the judge has made a ruling. It's just that initially going through this motion requirement, it would be confidential for that limited period of time.
Well, I'm kind of a little confused though, because the way the bill is written, the motion would be brought no later, I guess, than 30 days after the end of discovery. So at the end of discovery, all the documents that would be relevant are out there. What other kind of documents are you thinking about that would be a problem?
Well, there may have been documents in the course of the case that were or that are under seal. And I mean, we have cases dealing with DOE that are, and DOH and DHS that are all very sensitive documents, and we just don't want to risk.
You're talking about documents that were not discoverable, that would have some kind of protection. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
The bill again calls for the motion to be done up to 30 days after the end of discovery. It's not a little late for the department to be deciding whether to defend somebody?
It would be late, and I mean, it would only happen in the worst case scenario that somebody.
I mean, that's an issue. I think if this bill moves, I suppose the chair of the next committee will probably have to look at that, because the timing seems funny to me.
It's just, I mean, we have situations where, because a case can carry on for years, and say, if we get all the way to the end of discovery, and by then the employee has left the state, left the employment and everything, and suddenly they're not available to us.
But after the end of discovery, 30 days after, I mean,
that's still 3 months from trial. It's 3 months from trial.
Right.
And
so that's why the timing bothers me a bit, because you might be leaving your client in a lurch at that point.
Well, if we were to withdraw and the court permitted that, they would then, continue the trial and allow the person to get private counsel.
No.
They're fairly liberal with that.
Okay, we're moving ahead because we've got a 4:30 end point here. So I'm going to move on and break for decision making.
Thank you.
So, recess. We are reconvening the 3 o'clock hearing on labor and technology for decision making. All bills will pass out with technical non-substantive amendments. SB 752 relating to telecommunication, requiring the Office of Technology Service to establish a working group to identify state office buildings. Based on the comments of the comptroller, I'm going to, and also the concerns about sunshine law, I'm going to ask the comptroller to work on the identifying and studying all of the state offices that we could use as remote and report back to the legislature rather than a working group. And then we can move forward with getting as many places in the state to operate virtually, especially rural areas. Members, any discussion? Okay, chair votes aye. Vice Chair Lee.
Thank you. Voting on Senate Bill 752, recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present, are there any reservations or noes? If not, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 342 relating to paid sick leave. The chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments as recommended by the department. They really don't have a handle on who is or who is not paying sick leave, and there are possible conflicts in the various labor laws, federal and state. So I'm asking the Labor Department to conduct a study of the especially the small businesses and those employees and low income employees to be covered by sick leave. And I will ask them to include some of the organizations that testified today, the Restaurant Association, Hawaii Retail Merchants Association, Local 5, It's Children's Action Network Speaks, and any other organizations what was your organization? The Hawaii Workers Center, to work with you, and we will put a blank appropriation so that we can find out what it would cost, and then the effective date. So Chair votes aye, Vice Chair.
Voting on Senate Bill 342. Recommendations passed with amendments. Noting all members present, are there any reservations or any noes? If not, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And again, on SB 752, all of these will have effective dates. So moving on to SB 812 relating to immigrant services, establish and appropriate monies for the Immigrant Services and Access Unit within the Office of Community Services at the Labor Department. The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment and take the Hawaii Friends of Civil Rights proposal for changing the required activities to discretionary, adding language to broaden the offer of services, including but not limited to adding the duty to oversee and monitor the Immigrant Resource Center, putting in a blank appropriation, blank positions, and the effective date. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Lee.
Thank you. Voting on Senate Bill 812. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present, are there any reservations? Any noes? If not, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 1490 relating to state employees, requiring the state to defend professionally licensed or certified state employees from civil actions when acting within the scope. The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments with a effective date, because I'm still not clear on how much protections we can provide for our employees who are acting within the scope. And you can pass it on for more discussion in the next committee. Chair votes aye.
Voting on Senate Bill 1490. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present, are there any reservations or any noes? If not, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. We do have two more bills, SB 787, relating to the Employees Retirement System, and SB 1569 relating to telework. I'm sorry, we ran out of time, so we're going to roll it over to Wednesday, February 8th at 3 p.m. in this room, 224. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, I didn't put the effective date on the first, on the first bill, so I have to re-vote that. So it's basically the first bill, SB 752 relating to telecommunication. We need to re-vote on that to include a defective date. So Chair votes aye.
Do you need to
read the whole thing?
I would say.
Okay. The Chair's recommendation.
Sorry, I didn't mean that, but if you re-vote, then you should consider action.
Oh, okay. Let us consider previous action taken on SB 752. Chair votes aye. Right?
We're just going to take one vote, right? We're just going to reconsider and then.
Oh, reconsider and then just add the defective date. Okay. All right. So the vote is to reconsider and to vote on SB 752.
Voting on Chair's recommendation on SB 752. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present, are there any reservations or noes? If not, Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
With the defective date. Okay, thank you. Okay, adjourned.